There is something mysterious about someone who disappears without saying goodbye. It's not the absence itself that intrigues, but the naturalness with which some people close the door behind them and move on, as if the bonds that bind them were made of smoke. While most of us feel obligated to explain each departure, I need to go, see you later, I'll call you later, they simply evaporate. It's not rudeness, nor disinterest. It's as if they carry an invisible farewell manual, where the final page is always blank. Before you judge, no, there is no harm in this. It's not that they don't care, it's that the act of announcing a way out, for them, seems as necessary as announcing the air you are going to breathe. Life, after all, doesn't ask permission to change seasons. But behind this apparent indifference, there is an emotional logic that few people understand and which, when revealed, says a lot about how they see the world and, above all, how they see themselves in it. Perhaps they learned, at an early age, that goodbyes are small deaths. Saying goodbye is like signing a longing contract, and some souls prefer to avoid the burden of that commitment. Perhaps, at some point, they were abandoned without explanation, a parent who disappeared, a friend who cut off contact out of the blue and, without meaning to, adopted the same method as self-defense. Their brain works like an updated operating system. If I don't warn, I don't hurt. If I don't hurt, I don't get hurt. It's a cruel but efficient equation. Another possibility is that these people live in a state of presence so intense that the future, even if it's just 5 minutes from now, seems irrelevant. For them, the conversation, the moment, the connection, are like waves. They arrive, break on the sand and dissolve. Why interrupt the flow with words? Why ruin the magic of a date with the formality of a goodbye? It's as if they were saying, without saying, if it was good, there's no need for a period. If it wasn't, why prolong it? But there is also a dark side to this habit. Sometimes disappearing without warning is the language of someone who doesn't feel worthy of being expected. People who, somewhere in their childhood, internalize the idea that their presence is a burden, a temporary inconvenience. Then they disappear before anyone can confirm this fear. If I leave sooner, no one will realize I'm not supposed to be here. It's crooked logic, but it makes sense for anyone who grew up feeling like an unwanted guest in their own lives. And then we come to the question that few ask, what do these people gain from this? The answer may surprise. For them, the absence of goodbyes is not an act of escape, but of freedom. It's as if they were saying, my life is not a novel that needs a last chapter. It's a poem, and poems don't explain, they only suggest. There is a beauty in this, a silent rebellion against the obligation to give satisfaction. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, they choose the luxury of being invisible whenever they want. If you are one of these people, no, you are neither cold nor selfish. Maybe I just learned that some things, like the wind, like the weather, don't need permission to change direction. And if others feel lost when you disappear, it's not your fault. It's just that they still don't understand that the truest goodbyes are those that don't need words. Now, tell me, do you also have this habit of disappearing without warning? Or do you know someone like that? Leave it in the comments, who knows, we might discover more layers of this mystery together. And if this text made sense to you, share it with those who need to understand that not every goodbye needs a sound. Until next time. Or not. Life, after all, doesn't warn you. Silence as an inheritance. Why some people have the gift of disappearing. There is a type of person who doesn't disappear by chance, they disappear as a strategy. It is not a disappearance out of fear, but out of dominance. Like a cat choosing when to be seen, they know that the most powerful presence is the one that is not announced. And that, my friend, is not cold. It's art. Think. In a world where everyone shouts look at me, those who choose silence are, in fact, speaking louder. These people don't need goodbyes because they know that true connection doesn't depend on goodbyes. It's like a river that flows into the sea without warning, the water doesn't ask permission to follow its course. But here's the fascinating detail, they don't disappear from everyone. Only those who don't deserve to witness their evolution. It's a natural filter. A test. If you don't understand its rhythm, you are not part of the next chapter. And that's not cruelty, it's poetic self-preservation. The science behind disappearance, yes, there is one. Studies in psychology show that people with high emotional intelligence tend to move away from toxic environments without explanation. Why? Because explaining to those who don't understand is like teaching colors to a blind person. They learn early that some battles are not theirs and that the best way to win is not to fight. Another point, their brains process loneliness differently. While most feel panic when left alone, they recharge in emptiness. It's as if they have an updated operating system. Where others see abandonment, they see freedom. And there's more. Neuroscientists discovered that people with this characteristic have greater activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for making rational, not emotional, decisions. In other words, they do not disappear on impulse. They calculate what they really feel when they disappear, and why you won't understand. If you've ever been abandoned by one of these people, you've probably felt anger, confusion, or even betrayal. But here's the blunt truth, it wasn't about you. It was about what she needed to do with herself. Imagine a bird in a cage. Every day, someone knocks on the fence and says, "Stay, I love you." But the bird knows, loving is not arresting. One day, he opens the door and flies. Not out of malice, but because wings don't exist to decorate cages. These people feel guilt, yes. But they choose the guilt of disappearing instead of the guilt of staying and getting lost. Because, deep down, they know, if they don't save themselves first, they won't have anything to offer later. How to know if you're one of these souls, and why it's a superpower. 1. You've cancelled plans at the last minute not out of laziness, but out of instinct. Your body knows before your mind does when a place or person is unsafe. 2. You have a small, but intense, group of people. It's not about quantity. It's about who deserves to see you without a mask. 3. You've heard, you're hard to understand. Translation, you don't fit my expectations, and that scares me. 4. You feel relief, not sadness, when someone disappears from your life. Because you understand that some absences are gifts. 5. You've already disappeared and come back better. It wasn't an escape. It was metamorphosis. If you identified yourself, congratulations, you are part of a lineage of people who choose the quality of presence over the quantity of goodbyes. And that, in a noisy world, is revolutionary. What to do if you love someone like this? Tip: don't hold them. If you live with someone who disappears and returns like the seasons, don't ask for explanations. Ask for trust. Because they won't give you a map, they'll give you a compass. The certainty that, when you need it, you'll know how to find them. And if you are that person, know, the world needs your silence. Because it is there that the best ideas are born, wounds heal and souls reinvent themselves. The ultimate truth, that few will accept. Disappearing without warning is not rude. It is an act of courage. Because, in an era where everyone wants to be remembered, choosing to be forgotten for a while is the greatest gesture of self-love there is. So, the next time someone calls you cold for not giving satisfaction, respond with a smile: I'm not cold. I just know that fire burns less when it's not being observed. Now tell me, have you ever disappeared from someone's life without explanation? What led you to do this? Or have you already been abandoned by someone like that and, today, do you understand why? Comment here, who knows, maybe we'll discover that, deep down, we all have a little of this gift. If this text made sense, share it with those who need to understand that not every goodbye needs words. And if you are one of these souls, keep this reminder: the world may call it flight, but you know it is flight. Until next time. Or not. After all, the best stories are the ones we write without warning. Dove Hash. The silence that speaks louder than any goodbye. Have you ever felt that sometimes disappearing is the only way to show up for yourself? I'm not talking about that cowardly escape that leaves traces of guilt, but that strategic disappearance like a river that hides underground to return stronger. The world calls it cutting contact. But anyone who has done this knows, it's less about the other person and more about saving yourself from the shipwreck of always being the same to everyone. There is a subtle difference between those who disappear out of fear and those who disappear out of self-love. The first leaves doors ajar, messages unanswered, and lame excuses. The second, he closes the door quietly, because he knows that some exits don't need warning, they need courage. It's like taking off a bandage all at once. It hurts at the moment, but it prevents the wound from becoming infected. And here is the truth that few admit. The people who most criticize those who disappear are the same ones who never manage to do it. Because disappearing, when done right, is not abandonment, it is an act of preservation. Have you ever seen an oak tree apologize for dropping its leaves in the fall? No. He knows it is necessary to be reborn in the spring. Some goodbyes are dry leaves that need to fall for new ones to sprout. The mathematics of disappearance, that nobody teach in school. 1. Subtract the voices that echo you owe me an explanation. Hint: those who demand satisfaction generally don't deserve your energy. 2. Share your peace among the number of people who truly deserve it. Result: you will discover that the list is smaller than you imagined. 3. Multiply your solitary time by 2. Because it is in the void that we hear the answers that no one else can give. 4. Add only those who add, no blame, no buts. Rule of thumb: if her presence is a burden, her absence will be a relief. Trust that. What they don't tell you about disappearing. You will be called selfish. As if taking care of yourself were a crime. You will be called cold. As if heat were synonymous with being burned by others. You will be called unfair. As if life weren't, above all, a matter of survival. But here's the secret: those who really care about you will understand your silence. Not because they agree, but because real love doesn't require explanations, it expects you to come back in one piece. What if they don't come back? Well, there you have the answer you needed. An exercise for those who need to disappear, without guilt. Close your eyes and imagine. Who would you be if no one knew your past? What would you do if no one expected anything from you? Where would you go if you didn't need to satisfy anyone? Now open your eyes and ask, what is stopping you from being that person? Spoiler: it's usually the fear of disappointing someone who wouldn't even be willing to do the same for you. The last question, which will hurt, but needs to be asked. If you've ever disappeared from someone's life, was it out of fear or self-love? Would you go back today? What changed? If you were abandoned like this, deep down, do you understand why? Or do you still harbor the illusion that you deserve an explanation? Cruel tip: sometimes, the explanation is precisely the lack of it. Comment here, not with anger, not with longing, but with the honesty of someone who knows that some stories were not made to have a happy ending, but rather to have an end. To take with you, like a talisman. It's not that I don't want to talk. It's just that some things are so deep that they only make sense in silence. And if you don't understand that, you're probably not the one I should be talking to. If this text resonated with you, save this sentence. One day, when someone calls you cold or distant, you will know that in fact, you are like fire, you don't need an audience to burn. Share with those who need to understand that not every goodbye is an end. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of a reunion with yourself. And if you are one of those who has already disappeared and been reborn from the ashes, leave a fire in the comments. We recognize each other in the fire. Until next time. Or not. Because, deep down, the best stories are the ones we write without warning. Dove Hash. The silence that speaks the loudest, and why you don't need to explain it. Have you ever noticed how some people disappear without warning? It's not a calculated ghosting, nor a dramatic goodbye. It's as if, suddenly, they cease to exist on your map without fights, without justifications, without that cliché of "I need some time." Just emptiness. And then comes the question that gnaws at me: didn't I at least deserve a goodbye? Here's the naked truth: you deserved it. But not the kind of goodbye you might think. 1. The illusion of explanation, or, why end is not a word, it's an act. Have you ever stopped to think that the most important people in your life never asked your permission to enter? They simply arrived, with their flaws, their quirks, their shadows. And when they left, they did the same. They left as they came, without prior warning, like a wind that changes direction without warning the leaves. We grow up thinking that goodbye is a conversation. That love, friendship, or any deep bond requires formal closure, like a contract being terminated. But life doesn't work like that. The actual ends are not signed. They are felt. In the last hug that lasted half a second less. In the message you sent and was never answered. In the silence that suddenly became the only answer. And then you stay there, waiting for words that won't come, as if the other person owed you an instruction manual for their own absence. But the explanation, often, is precisely the lack of it. 2. What they didn't tell you, and you need to hear. When someone disappears from your life without warning, it's not about you. It's about their fear of facing you, because you represent something they can't name. The cowardice of dealing with one's own truth. It's easier to disappear than to say I've changed or I can't take it anymore. The illusion that by not speaking they spare you, as if silence were less painful than the truth. But here's the secret no one tells you. People who disappear like this are usually running away from themselves, not you. You were just the last port before their sinking. And that, my friend, is not a rejection, it is a confession. 3. The grief of unsaid goodbyes, and how to survive it. You will go through 3 phases, and none of them are linear. A. Negotiation with yourself. If I send one more message, if I call, if I show up at his house. The truth, there is no right thing to say to someone who has already decided to leave. Their silence is the answer. B. Anger disguised as longing. How could she have done this to me? The truth, it wasn't about you. It was for her. And the anger you feel isn't about her, it's about your own impotence in changing the past. C. Acceptance that comes like a breath. One day, you will wake up and no longer need answers. Because you will understand that some stories don't end with punctuation. They simply stop being written. 4. What to do when silence is the only answer. 1. Don't fill their gaps with your words. Every unanswered message is a brick in the wall they are building. Don't be the bricklayer of your own prison. 2. Understand that some people are like stations. They arrive, they move. They change everything and leave. It's not treason. It's nature. 3. Write the letter you will never send. Let it all out. The anger, the longing, the questions. Burn later. It's not for them. It's for you to free yourself from the weight of waiting. 4. Stop being the detective of your own pain. Stopping looking for clues, rereading conversations, making excuses for other people's behavior is the first act of self-love after a silent goodbye. 5. The lesson only silence teaches. People who leave without explaining give you a bitter but valuable gift. They force you to look within. Because when you stop looking for answers outside, you start finding them within. And then you discover that you don't need closure. You need peace. It's not about deserving explanations. It's about deserving respect, and respect, sometimes, is about letting go. Love is not measured by goodbye. You measure yourself by what's left, even if it's just the pain, because even the pain proves that you were capable of feeling. To carry like a talisman, when the world expects you to explain the unexplainable. It's not the people who abandon us that destroy us. It's us, insisting on carrying the weight of their absence as if it were our fault. One day, you'll let go. Not because you forgave. But because you understand, some stories weren't meant to end. They were made to teach you how to live without them. Keep that sentence. When someone calls you cruel for not chasing, or cold for not crying anymore, remember, you are not ice. You are fire. And fire doesn't need other people's oxygen to burn. Now, tell me. Have you ever been abandoned like this? What hurt most, the absence or lack of answers? Have you ever disappeared without explaining? What made you do this? No judgment, we understand. What was the most painful lesson someone's silence taught you? Comment here. Not with bitterness, not with longing, but with the honesty of someone who knows that some people are like comets. They shine brightly, burn quickly and, when they leave, they don't even leave ashes, just the certainty that, for a while, you had the privilege of watching them pass by. And if you've already burned down, disappeared and been reborn, leave a fire in the comments. We recognize ourselves in the flames. Until next time. Or not. Because the best stories are the ones we live without having to tell the ending. Blackheart.